Welcome back, Gotham Acupuncture podcast listeners. I'm Josh, your host, and I'm excited to be here for episode 4. Today, we will be talking about meditation. Joining me, as always, our expert, Dr. Peter Karen. Dr. Karen, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Josh?
I am doing great, and I'm really excited to this episode because I'm really interested to delving deeper into meditation. And to start, Dr. Karen, could you tell our listeners about your personal experience with meditation and how it interacts with your practice of traditional Chinese medicine?
Oh, that's a big question. Sure. I've spent time in a few different Buddhist traditions doing quite a bit of meditation. I've spent time in various ceremonial settings from Lakota traditions, doing sweat lodges, to cacao ceremonies in Central America, to ayahuasca retreats in the Amazon jungle. So I've,
Wow.
I've, I've participated in a number of different styles of meditation, let's say. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the subject, but I've got a fairly wide set of experience, and I've gone pretty deep on a few of these.
Oh, okay. Wow. Really? You really go a lot of meditation and you didn't even call yourself an expert? Yeah. That's that's interesting. And also, I know that since you already gone through a lot of different types of meditation, many of our listeners might be new to meditation. So, what are some simple meditation techniques that they can incorporate into their daily lives to experience its benefits?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is to talk about the goal of meditation. Like, what are you doing? And different traditions will have different goals and different things that you're attempting to accomplish. But the central idea, which is pretty universal, is just beginning to notice how your own mind works. So the idea is that as we go about our day to day, we tend to be wrapped up in the thoughts and experiences that we have. And that if we take time to slow down and observe how our mind works in a quiet setting, we can see that some of those thoughts are perhaps not helpful, or that some of those thoughts are might be coming from anxiety, or might be
Mhm.
coming from a desire to control things, or a desire to have something you don't have, or a desire to get rid of something you don't want.
Yes.
And none of that's bad or wrong. But if you're sitting still and not moving for 10 minutes and you can't stop thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, even though you're not hungry, there could be a certain sort of, well, that's weird type of experience that happens. And that's often the beginning of a meditative journey for people. So I think of the goal of meditation as being to, at least the starting goal, is to form a relationship with your own mind where you can watch what your mind does. And this is incredibly helpful for all sorts of mental health issues, many of which involve being carried away by one's mind and believing the contents of the thoughts and experiences that we have. So, real simple exercises here. Oh, there's a lot to choose from. Often the first meditation that's given to people is what's called an empty mind meditation, but I'm not sure this is always the best place to start. This meditation consists of sitting, not moving, in a relaxed, comfortable position. And there's a single thought that you start with, which is, I am not my thoughts, feelings, or emotions. And then the traditional recommendation is to sit there and watch thoughts arise in your mind and
Mhm.
pass away. It's often described as watching thoughts like they're clouds passing through the sky. And part of the goal of this is to recognize that whether or not you're trying to do anything, the thoughts just kind of happen and then they just kind of go away. This can be extremely calming and it can really help to form that mind relationship. Sometimes it's called observer consciousness. But I actually really like an even simpler meditation, which is that you, again, sit comfortably. Don't worry about posture. Don't worry about, do I have to bend my legs this way? What should I do with my hands? Just sit comfortably in a place where you don't really have to move much and breathe in and out through the nose and focus on the sensations that occur on the upper lip and on the nostrils and pay attention to nothing else. So as thoughts come up, you're like, what should I buy for dinner? Maybe I'm just hungry today. What should I buy for dinner? And instead of getting caught up in that and in planning, you just focus on feeling the inhale and the exhale pass
Yeah.
over your lips and your nose. I think this is a good place to start because what this does is it's almost like training with weights for focusing your mind. So it helps you to gain that focus. And once you have some focus, then some of the other practices are a lot easier. And this one's simple enough, anyone can do it. It's easier if you got a little bit of hair up here because you can feel things better. So I have a mild advantage. But anyone can do
Yeah.
this. And it can be done on the subway on the way to work. It can be done in a car at a stoplight for 30 seconds. But it just helps to put us back in our bodies, focus on sensations, ground the mind, calm the mind, draw the attention away from the thoughts. But it's not forcing people to go into a place of not thinking. It's rather teaching them to focus somewhere else. And a lot of people get caught up in not thinking and they're like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. And it's like, well, that's a thought.
Yeah.
So that doesn't count. And with this, I think everyone can kind of agree that, like, well, I'm feeling what's happening here. And, the general complaint with this is, but how do I know if I'm doing it right? It's like, just do it for a little while and you'll start to see changes.
Yeah, those are really great advice, Dr. Karen. I have honestly tried it a couple of days. I tried it for like a week. I'm trying to sit on a yoga mat and then just close my eyes, listening to some meditation music. I have an application for it. Like I'm sitting there for 5 minutes. However, I'm really conscious with how I sit, how I hand like this one or this one. How should I do it? So I'm really conscious regarding with everything that I'm doing to the point that I'm not even concentrating with my mind. So I, I'm really
Well,
getting distracted.
this is a very common experience.
Yeah.
And that's why I recommend starting with this just breathing and focusing exercise, because there's a million ways there are a million ways to convince yourself that maybe you're doing something incorrectly when it comes to meditation. But
Yeah.
the idea of doing things correctly or incorrectly is itself one of the thoughts we're trying not to participate in. And so if you're sitting in that position, or anyone is sitting in that position, and they're going, should I have my legs this way? How should I hold my hands? Then you're already in the meditation and you're already getting caught up in the thoughts. It really doesn't matter. There's some advanced meditation stuff where they care about these things more, but even there, it doesn't really matter. One of the examples I like for this is that the statues of Thai Buddhist monks often involve them lying down on their side as opposed to
Yeah.
sitting in a complex meditation posture. There's no right or wrong way to do some of these
Oh,
things. What matters is that if you're having these thoughts of, am I doing things right? That might be more a tendency of the mind to worry about that than an actual commentary on whether you're doing it correctly. So for example, if I have a patient who's always worried that people are judging them, then I might encourage them to meditate by themselves to start. Because if they meditate in a group, they might be wondering whether people are looking at them, whether
yeah.
people are thinking about them. But once they get a little practice doing it by themselves, they should go do it in a group so that they have these thoughts and realize that everyone has their eyes closed and no one cares. But there's something in their mind that's bringing this up. And so these are the
Yeah.
sorts of patterns that meditation helps to unwind. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for all of your insights. And it's now clear for me. I'll really going to try it again.
Yeah. Give it a
Maybe
shot.
after my shift, I'll really do it again because after I've tried it for a straight week and then I didn't see any difference, I honestly stopped because it told me, oh, it isn't working for me. I think it's really not for me. However, regarding with what you said, that don't focus, just clear your mind, focus on the breathing, then I will do it. Thank you for that advice, Dr. Karen. It's
You're
very
welcome.
helpful. Thank you. And also, how does meditation impact the body's energy flow or chi in traditional Chinese medicine? Are there specific techniques that help balance or enhance the flow of chi through meditation?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So the starting meditations are usually about building a relationship with the mind and focusing the mind. But from there, there's a bunch of different directions to go. We can talk first about how problems can happen from not meditating, from not having this relationship. So
Wow.
for
Yeah.
example, if someone is anxious a lot of the time, and that anxiety, we'll keep using the same example, is about people watching them or judging them. Well, all of those thoughts take resources from the person. It consumes some of their energy to be thinking and worrying about that all the time. And so, if through meditation they can relax that part of their mind and not worry, then they get that energy back. So, right there, we have a decent sized benefit. If people spend a lot of their time distracted and not where they are, either thinking about the past or the future or thinking about abstract things that aren't about where they are now, then they're more likely to make mistakes in what they're doing in a day to day setting. This is part of the reason why things like archery can be a meditation exercise or
Mhm.
calligraphy. They force you to focus on the moment. So, by gaining this sort of internal calm and peace, we get a lot more resources. And by being here and now, we tend to be better at the things that we do. When we're distracted and thinking about, oh, in high school, I was so embarrassed by this thing. I wonder if they still think about it. And then you stub your toe
Yeah.
because you're not paying
Right.
attention to where you're walking. These are very simple examples, but this can also be I get anxious. And when I get anxious, I eat a cookie. And then
Hmm.
20 years later, the person has diabetes. So,
Yeah.
a lot of real medical, in Chinese medicine, we see most medical conditions as coming from people's lifestyles. And if a person can help to calm their mind, manage their emotions in a healthy manner, detach themselves from some of these experiences, then they don't have to use coping mechanisms,
Hmm.
tools in the
Right.
world to help deal with these things. And often those coping mechanisms make us sick. So, this is why some degree of mindfulness practice or meditation is often a part of rehab institutions. It's often a part of, there are quite a few prisons in the United States that have meditation programs to help people deal with anger. Yeah, there's a lot of this. When it comes to acupuncture points and meridians, one of the practices that I sometimes teach to students is what we call medical Qigong or just Qigong, which is focusing the mind on parts of the body to see what's going on there and to move resources around.
Hmm.
So, an easy example of this is something difficult may happen in someone's life, and instead of crying, they might just feel tightness in their chest,
Yeah.
but they can't move that emotion. If the person just stays busy, they may never really feel that emotion. It may kind of stay stuck there. But if they take the time to slow down, relax their mind, stop worrying about what's happening around them, stop overthinking, and then focus into the sensations in their chest, they may be able to slowly untie that tension, like untying a knot. And then the emotions may be able to flow outwards. Which, if someone always has tension in their chest, maybe they go to the doctor and they get a prescription for that. Often we call
Exactly.
that anxiety. Um,
That's what they do.
so it's good to get these things out, and it's nice to have tools to do it on your own. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really amazing how acupuncture really focuses on healing the person itself, not just by relying on some medication, some prescription, then higher dosages until the person really doesn't get better. But regarding with
we try to
really,
avoid that.
yeah, how traditional Chinese medicine works, it's amazing. Like we're
Well, this
focusing on
is
healing themselves, right?
a qigong teacher of mine used to say, who is also an acupuncturist, used to say
Yeah.
that they think the main thing that the needles do is focus the person's attention on the needle, that it's
Oh, okay.
actually forcing them to do meditation and qigong work on those because it brings their attention there, and then their attention
Yeah.
stays there. I'm not entirely sure about that, but there's something to it. And this is also part of how acupuncture works. If someone's lying on a table listening to
Mhm.
meditation music in a dark room and they've got acupuncture needles in their body, they usually can't move much. That's meditation.
That's right. That really makes sense. And also, I'm reading some different blogs, comments regarding with acupuncture. It's really connected regarding with how people feel the acupuncture needles inside them. It really helps them to meditate. You will think about the needle instead of different side of things. You
Mhm.
can focus on only one thing, and I agree. It's called meditation.
So, an example of this is sometimes patients will come in with a headache and a lot of anxiety. And we would say that all of their energy is in their head.
Yeah.
And we might treat that by putting acupuncture needles in their feet to draw their attention to their feet to
Mm.
bring that energy down. And then they fall asleep on the table and they get up and they say, "Oh, my headache's gone and I'm not feeling as
Wow.
anxious." And then sometimes we touch their feet and their feet are warmer.
Yes. And also, since you're already talking about anxiety, headache, and you mentioned earlier regarding with anger issues, many of our listeners are dealing with high stress levels in their daily lives, especially in New York. So, how can meditation help manage stress, and what traditional Chinese medicine principles can be applied to support this?
Well, when it comes to stress, oh, there's so many ways to go with this. There's nothing wrong with stress as long as that stress is being used to motivate a person to improve things. So if a person is at work and they're working on a difficult project and they feel tense and they're working hard and then they finish working and they finish the project, that's fine. The problem is if they leave work and they're
Mm-hmm.
not working anymore and they're still stressed. When that stress is not helping the person to accomplish what they want to do, when it's not improving their life, let's say it's keeping them from sleeping,
Yeah.
which is going to make them worse at what they want to do, well, then the stress is bad. And so it's not that stress is good or bad, or anxiety or fear or anger. All of these things have a place. It's that when it's not their time, they shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we're not really trained, at least in the United States, to regulate or manage these things ourselves. So, sure, I could sit and meditate after work to relieve some stress, but I don't really know how to do that. I'm not sure if it works for me. So instead, I'll have a few drinks and that'll work too. But again, after 20 years, that has problems.
Right.
So,
Don't that problem.
this is one of the central ideas of Chinese medicine is that we have lots of treatments for lots of things, but the goal is for you to not need our services. The goal is to not need acupuncture. The goal is to not need herbs or medication. Of course, there are conditions that have to be medicated. And thank God for a lot of Western medicine. But for a lot of things, the goal is to not need this. And so our job is to try to help people to be free of these sorts of things and to be able to work with their own emotions and not need an outside source to help them.
Wow. That's really amazing, Dr. Karen. Thank you for all of the insights that you were really sharing. I also learned a lot with these conversations, with
Good.
all of the podcast episodes. I really appreciate it. And also, this will be my last question, or for closing. For
Sure.
those who are new to meditation, what are the common challenges or misconceptions they may face, and how can they overcome them on their journey to better health?
There's a little bit of a catch 20, a contradiction in learning meditation, in that it's kind of a how do you learn something that you don't know how to learn is kind of the question, which that's hard.
Yeah.
And so I really think I have yet to meet a person who truly can't meditate. Everyone can. It's beneficial to everybody, but it's extremely common that people feel so uncomfortable when they start doing it that they feel like they're doing it wrong. That's the only way to explain how uncomfortable they feel. I'm sitting this way. This is not good. I'm very aware of how uncomfortable I am. This is
That's
this
so
is
me.
I must be doing it wrong. I'm going to stop. But that discomfort, from the perspective, I would say those people are usually doing it perfectly. They're
Mm,
just becoming aware that they're uncomfortable. Now,
right.
if we're always so an example of this would be if I've twisted my ankle and it hurts and I'm sitting at home and I'm not doing anything at all, then I might be very aware of how much my ankle hurts.
Yeah.
But if
Exactly.
I'm playing a video game and focused really intensely, and if I've had a couple drinks and maybe I've even smoked some marijuana, then I might not be noticing my ankle at all. The ankle still hurts. What's happening in the ankle hasn't changed. I'm just not aware of it. And so when people start meditating, they often feel all these uncomfortable feelings. And from the perspective of someone with more experience, would say those feelings are always there.
Mm,
It's just slowing down enough to become aware of them. And if you stick with that and people quit right then because they don't want to feel that, totally understandable.
yeah.
But if you stick with those feelings, and you keep trying this process, then
Mm-hmm.
often people realize that those feelings are getting better and that they're starting to go away and they're starting to feel more comfortable. And then something new shows up. And just watching that pattern repeat over and over, independent of what's happening in the room, independent of how one's sitting, noticing that these anxieties, these discomforts come and go, helps people to go, oh, I shouldn't take this that seriously. This is just like a twisted ankle. I'm not going to lose sleep over my twisted ankle. I'm not going to, not eat for 2 days because I twisted my ankle. So often we think of physical pain and emotional pain as pretty similar. We just have a different relationship to it.
Yes.
So stick with the discomfort as best you can.
Thank you. That's really great advice, Dr. Karen. And also, I'd like to thank you for giving a good example. Like, if you were playing a lot of video games and you didn't even notice that your feet already hurts, right? However, if you were in meditation wherein you focuses on your body, you really feel it that it's really hurting. You really feel uncomfortable. When I tried it myself, I can feel my back is itching, and then later on, the itching will move into my belly and until I can't focus anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the importance of meditating is consistency, right? Consistency really is the key.
Consistency is great, but
Mm-hmm.
I often think if people just want to do this for 10 minutes a few times a week, that's a great place to start. And, that can be something as simple as when you get off work, people can take a shower and sit down, like clean themselves off and just sit down for a few minutes before they start doing the next thing and just sit there, not trying to do anything. Meditation is a little contradictory because it's an exercise in not doing things. That's why I like to start with this breathing exercise that
Yes.
involves doing something because that's easier for people to start with. Um,
Yes.
but really, it's just kind of zoning out and relaxing for a little bit. And then at some point, it'll be time to do the next thing. And then when that's the time, you do that. It sounds very easy, but it's a little challenging, as you've encountered.
10 minutes is pretty long for me. I've tried it for 5 minutes as a starting point, and then 5 minutes feels like around an hour,
Yeah,
especially if you're really not doing anything, just keeping your eyes closed and focus on your breathing. It feels like, hey, why the timer is still not ringing?
right.
I've been there for
The
like
timer
30
must be
minutes.
broken. I should check the timer.
Yeah, exactly. But as always, Dr. Karen, thank you so much for always shedding light on the connection between meditation and also traditional Chinese medicine. It's been a fantastic discussion, and I'm sure our listeners, as well as I am, have gained valuable insights in how these two practices complement each other. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. So, yeah, that wraps up our episode 4 of Gotham Acupuncture Podcast. We hope that you found our exploration of meditation enlightening and inspiring. Remember to subscribe, leave us a review, and stay tuned for more informative episodes in the future. So, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out. Until next time, find your inner balance and be well. Thank you. Goodbye.
Take care.
Take care.